So I think we can all agree that we are past the point of no return when it comes to
Not even
dystopia
close.
driven.
We are nowhere near dystopia. Of that, I can promise you. It seems like we're in dystopia because of um these kind of two things of the stories we tell ourselves and the perception that we have based upon the recent past. So we had two very long runs of prosperity. One was fueled by debt. One was fueled by cheap money, which is you one can say is another form of debt. So in the 80s, we had lowered taxes and technology had come in and was deflationary, and so we had this huge run of prosperity from about 1991 through to about 2001. Um, and that was kind of ended by 9/11 and the dot-com bust. We then had a brief recession from '01 to '02. Then we picked back up from '03 straight through to the 2008 financial crisis. We then had the Great Financial Crisis, and then in 2013 things picked back up, fueled by qualitative easing and incredibly low interest rates. And that period would continue on straight through to the end of the pandemic when interest rates shot up. And the age of free money ended. And so that's when you get into like the millennial lifestyle subsidy of being able to, ride Uber super cheap, get food delivered super cheap, gig economy, blah, 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 all this type of thing. And in the 90s, people were able to buy big houses, buy lots of stuff, go on great vacations, all this type of thing. People casually talked around having 40 grand in credit card debt, all this type of thing. Whole mess. Um, and so for a lot of people, especially millennials, 80, 81 and Gen Z, and now the starting of Gen Alpha, we've sort of only known these long periods of debt fueled or cheap money fueled prosperity. And and because a lot of people work jobs where they have no health care, because a lot of people can't afford housing, certainly cannot afford to buy a house, having to hang on to used cars because used car prices are through the roof, all this type of thing. All of these are knock ons of the economy has fundamentally changed. We've regressed to the mean. We're not even close to dystopia. Your mail is still getting delivered. The social security checks still go out. You can get your DoorDash and your driver is not going to get killed by a war. Your house is not actively being bombed. You are not actively fleeing a war zone. You don't get your healthcare from the Red Cross. I mean, you can't afford healthcare otherwise, but you're not getting it from the Red Cross. You have access to, safe food that is regulated, relatively safe drinking water as long as you don't have lead pipes, all this type of thing. And we have there that is the life of the everyday person. They're able to go to work, access fuel, access energy, access water, access food. Now, can everybody afford all of those things? No. Is that a huge problem? Absolutely. I complain about it all the time. But those things still exist. If we were really living in dystopia, you'd be waiting in line for bread. You couldn't get healthcare at any cost. You'd be going to the hospital hoping that you might get help in a few days, and that if you're sick or your family's sick, that you might live long enough to do that. Oh, and did I mention you probably walked there for a long time, with someone who was sick, or hope to hitch a ride with somebody because you certainly couldn't afford a car or a taxi. We're nowhere near dystopia. Do we have a lot of things wrong? Yes. We have a lot of problems to solve? Absolutely. I talk about it all the time. We are nowhere near dystopia. It just seems that way because our world has been fueled by debt, low interest rates, free money, and also we're conscious of these problems more than we ever were before. In the world I grew up in, my parents read the newspaper every single day, the Denver Post, and we watched the evening news, and that was it. We went about our lives. Nowadays, thanks to the smartphone, every problem is right in front of our faces. Lead pipes in Flint, lead pipes in Jackson, this problem here, that problem there, this population over here. And it's great for those marginalized communities to get the word out on apps like this one. But the reality is, it makes it seem like the world is falling apart. The world has always been falling apart. But the reality is that when it comes to the basic things that sustain human life and make it for us to have a civilized society to live in, things are okay. I'm just a content creator. I'm a full time working artist. Am I financially secure? Absolutely not. I'm a full time working artist. Was I able to go out and get what I needed today, access my medication in a car with gas and all this type of thing, a car that needs brakes and license plates and all this type of thing? Yes, I was able to access all those things. I never once had to fear for my life while doing it. I didn't fill up my car with gas because I didn't know when I was going to get gas again. I'm on a quarter tank. I should have got gas, actually. No, I didn't have to do any of those things because we're not living in a collapsing society. This is so far from actual dystopia. If you go to Haiti, Somalia, Yemen, South Sudan, Ukraine, life is a lot worse. It can get a lot worse to where you're standing in line for gas, as my mom did in the 70s when they had gas shortages because of the embargo. You can be standing in line for food. Your water may not be safe at all to drink, which if you've lived in Flint or some other places, you know that part of dystopia. Um, you can be standing in line for healthcare if you can access it at all, or you're getting a slap together job by the Red Cross because a charity or NGO is there. You can have local industry flooded out with cheap foreign goods that have completely undermined your local economy, similar to what happened with the Rust Belt with jobs going overseas. All of these things can be happening all the time, and there's nowhere to go. There's no way to recover. It's just stagnancy, and there's no one to help, and there's no money, and there's no nothing. That's dystopia. Dystopia is when things are barely functioning and barely hanging on, and life is hard and difficult, and you have to come together with your community in order to be able to hope to maybe survive because you don't have electricity, but maybe your neighbor does, and you can recharge a phone or charge up a light or all this type of thing. You're not facing children dying because they can't get medical care. That's not a reality that we're living in. So I don't like it when people be like, "Oh yeah, the world is falling apart and we're in dystopia. We need to learn to live with it." We're not even close. Not even close.